Let's play a little game. If you see this profile of this player who was Bronze Conquest in Season 2 and Bronze Conquest in Season 3, Bronze 5 in both seasons, then where would you think this player will be placed this season? Now if you say he's not gonna get placed in Bronze 5 again, you're right. I don't think anyone has actually placed into Bronze 5 right away. That may be restricted. Maybe he will be placed in Bronze 3. Maybe he is underplaced. Maybe he'll end up actually being placed higher. Maybe he ends up in Silver 3. Maybe he's actually that much better. Sounds logical, right? Okay, what if I was to say he was placed in Gold 3? You would probably say, okay, that's pretty impressive. Maybe he was really just stuck in elo hell. Maybe he is actually a lot better than he was given credit for. Is actually a gold player instead of a Bronze 5 player. And, well, that's pretty good for him. What if I told you he was placed in Platinum? I mean, at that point you would probably assume, hey, this guy is probably getting boosted by one of his friends and he's not doing anything for it, and that's it. But what would you say if I told you that an ex-Bronze player across 2 seasons was placed in Diamond? Because that's exactly what happened. And that's gonna be today's topic. I had to do this little introduction so you understand why this is relevant. I was actually planning on doing something completely different about Witchblade today. I will do that later this week probably. But this topic is becoming more and more relevant throughout the week and I couldn't really wait any longer. To clarify, I'm not at all pissed that that guy is placed in Diamond. I'm happy for him. I mean, hey, he's getting a Diamond frame now or whatever, and that's pretty cool for him. But what this shows us is an underlying issue of what's happening in Ranked. Because it's not a special case, this is not a singular case, this is basically the standard. I know of multiple people who were placed in Bronze or Silver last season who have suddenly been placed into Diamond. I also know of multiple pro players, which you will see right here, Barracuda and Adapting, who were originally placed into Platinum after the qualifiers. So ex-Grandmasters players are placed in Platinum, whereas ex-Bronze and Silver players are placed into Diamond. But not only that, some of the ex-Grandmasters players had a win-loss ratio of 8-2 in their qualifiers, where some of the Bronze players had a win ratio around 6-4 or 7-3 and got placed higher. To throw this in as a little side note, I have not done my qualifiers yet for exactly this reason. And I want to stress that here just to make clear it's not me complaining about being misplaced. I am not placed at all yet. But these people are. And the reason they are placed like this is actually multiple factors. The first one is the hard reset of elo that was happening this season. And I thought the hard reset in itself was a very good idea. There were just too many people that were heavily misplaced last season and made it really hard to, well, expect any people to perform at any certain level when you wouldn't know if a Platinum player was actually playing on that level or if a Silver player was actually playing on that level. Because, well, they could have been heavily misplaced and playing much better or much worse than their placement would indicate. So Season 4's hard reset was supposed to make up for that and fix these misplaced placements that have developed over time. What it did was the exact opposite. What we see now is a massive issue with the weighing of games in the qualifiers. There is a reason why these different placements happen. And this has always existed and it was always a pretty bad system in my opinion. Basically, if you get matched against better players, then your rating will go higher. Your elo will be weighed more positively for you if you win the match. The problem is that when everybody qualifies at the start of the season, there isn't really any set point on where you could indicate how good a player is. A Grandmaster would be a qualifier and a Bronze player would also be a qualifier. So weighing the qualifiers differently creates huge issues. The logic behind it is kind of there. You don't want someone to win 10 games in a row against Bronze players and then get placed into Diamond because of that. But it doesn't really work when no one is placed yet and the system hasn't really figured out who is good or bad so far. Because of that, some people just get placed into matches that are considered hard for whatever reason, because there are other players that also won their first few matches, but are maybe not good as well or got carried, and that way get boosted higher and higher and higher. And then there should be this point where the system recognizes, okay, but then he lost all his games when he was placed high enough, and that point is apparently gone if somebody with 6-4 can place into Diamond. The whole logic is even further flawed by the fact that somebody is not very likely at all to win 10 games in a row if they're not decent or good at the game. If you were to win 7 games in a row, then at that point, you should already be placed against players that are as good as possible at that point of the game, even if there's not everyone being qualified already. But you should be fighting stronger opponents, and if you're fighting stronger opponents, that should mean that you're probably a pretty good player if you still manage to win those games. So somebody who is winning 8 games out of 10 is most likely a good player, whereas 6 games is something that you can win much easier. Let's say, for example, this player ended up getting matched against other bronze players for 4 of the matches and just got, well, lucky there and played a little better than they did, and then he got carried for 2 games, and then he lost the other 4. That's how you get 6 wins. That's how simple it can be. And at some point, you know, it's always a question of where the threshold is between luck and skill. But obviously, somebody who wins 80% of their games is most likely gonna be relatively good and well above average if he gets placed against decent players in the later matches. If he gets placed against very weak players in the later matches, so the matches get weightless, which is apparently what happened, then the question is, why does he get matched against such weak players when he's already on a high win streak? When he basically has a 100% win rate at that point, why does he get matched against somebody who is a lot worse? And because of that, instead of fixing the placements, what was supposed to be happen, the placements have been broken to the point of no return. Basically, we could have a complete reset again for the ELO, for the divisions, and it would be more fair than anything we have right now, but that would piss off way too many people, so Hi-Rez can't do it. And it wouldn't change anything because the algorithms for the qualifiers are still the same. And the escalation for the qualifiers, so how much you get pushed up, was even increased this season, and no one really knows why, because that was exactly leading to what we have now, and it was kind of obvious that was gonna happen, but they didn't want to change it, I guess. And the fact that you can qualify right into Diamond also had a logic to it, because with the seasons being shorter now, with the splits being shorter, they wanted you to have an opportunity to get to where you belong faster. But the way it is now, people are not where they belong. And if you think that's not a problem if they don't play anymore, let me tell you that they still play. And that's where the issue really starts. I don't mind people getting Diamond frames, that's whatever to me. Cool, they have a nice frame. But what that means for matchmaking is a major issue. Some of these people will stop queuing. They're like, okay, I'm in Diamond, I know if I play more I'm gonna drop down. But that's probably the minority. Most people think, you know, if I'm in Diamond, I belong to Diamond. And what they do is they keep playing. And that means that everyone else who places into Diamond, who's good at the game, will have to play with them or against them. And that will lead to a lot of games basically being won by whoever gets the misplaced player, or lost rather in that regard. And that is already happening. If you think that's just, you know, worst scenario that could happen, it is happening. If you see this match that Variety tweeted out, we have 5 pro players being matched against 5 randoms. I actually know one of these randoms and he's a very good player, no doubt about that. But I'm pretty sure that the 5 pro players are still playing on a higher level than he is, and especially than maybe the rest of the team is, which I've never heard of. Maybe there's 1 or 2 very talented players in that other team, but that still doesn't compensate for the fact that they're playing against 5 of the best players in the world. And they are all on one team, because the placements of all these players indicate that they're in equal divisions. Everyone in this game was Diamond, so it's supposed to be a fair game by that logic. And that just doesn't add up. It is really problematic for any division really, because people are heavily misplaced across divisions. The bell curve logic that is applied usually doesn't really work out when you have such a, well, strange gateway into Diamond, whereas others will probably be placed way lower than they should be just because of how heavily the qualifiers seem to be weighed. I'm guessing that by losing the first qualifier, you already basically lost the chance to get into Diamond, or something like that. I don't even know how exactly it's gonna work. But because of this weighing system being unclear, weird, and, well, boosting people even more than in previous seasons, we are in a very, very bad spot when it comes to the quality of matches and the value of divisions. How is somebody gonna know if you're actually good as a Diamond player anymore? In Season 3, if you got to Diamond, it meant something. You cannot honestly tell me that Diamond players were trash. There were probably some players in Diamond that didn't really belong there and just were playing a lot, but if you went above platinum, then there wasn't a certain indication that you were decent enough to, well, be in that division for the most part. Now, you could be diamond, you could basically be bronze, or you could be plat and you could be grandmasters. So where's the value? Where's the indication of skill based on the division? We don't even see the elo anymore, but that's going to be equally bloated because it's been reset, and we know what's happening. It doesn't make sense at all. And I really hope there's going to be some sort of solution to that. I don't know how that solution could look at this point, but it's going to be a long way until there's any sort of even placements at this point, even with the soft resets. That's my not only 2 cents, but many cents on the topic. I am not happy with how this has developed, but what can you do? I hope there's gonna be a fix. Thank you guys for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you thought this video was interesting. Also, I'm gonna do a duo stream with Meados, which is also a drunk stream tomorrow. So if you want to check that out, twitch.tv/DukeSloth. DukeSloth, out.